One example I like to use that kind of explains, in my opinion, one of the biggest differences between Japanese and American culture is their use of thank you and you're welcome. They essentially don't say it if they can avoid it. It's kind of interesting, because when I first got to Japan, their use of thank you and you're welcome threw me off. And I thought it was kind of rude. And I kind of went through a little culture shock because I had a hard time with it. But then on the flip side, when I got back, Americans' use of it I found very rude and shocking. And I sort of went through this sort of weird reverse culture shock. But essentially, you're welcome is almost never said because, like, if I did something nice for you and you said thank you and I said you're welcome, aren't I sort of acknowledging that I did something nice, right? And that's not something you do. You try not to acknowledge something good that you did or something good about you, because it's arrogant and it's forward, and you don't want to do that. And then on the flip side, you'd say thank you if someone did something kind to you, but you would not say thank you if somebody complimented you. In fact, you'd say no. You'd try to refuse it intentionally. You'd be like, no, 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 no. And at first, I didn't like that Japanese people would do that to me. I'd be like, what's wrong with you? I'm trying to compliment you. Why don't you just take it? Why don't you accept it? I was a little offended when people would do that. But then on the flip side, I get back to America and I would say, oh yeah, you did this thing really well. And people would say, thank you. I'd be like, oh, what kind of arrogant person are you? Because I was so used to the other way around. And there's just such a huge cultural difference where they don't want to drag attention to themselves. And in reality, you don't want to drag attention to other people either. And so you don't say thank you excessively when they've done something nice. And it's something to get used to. But another one is that you don't use the word you almost ever. I would say that I heard a Japanese person use the word you to me probably within a few dozen times total in the 2 years I was there. Well, a year and 9 months or so. And that was kind of weird too. You'd address people by name, or you'd address people indirectly by just the fact that you're talking to them. They can assume that you're referring to them. But you would not try to say you should do this or anything like that because it was too direct, it was too forward, it was too in your face. And there's also some very, very polite forms that were extremely indirect. For example, instead of telling somebody that you would come with them, you could say, this is strange in English, but you could say, I will humbly partake of you allowing me or forcing me to come with you. Because you're not saying, I'm imposing, I'm coming with you. You'd say, I'm humbly partaking of this gift you've offered me of allowing me to come with you. And it was more indirect that way. And so that was probably the biggest part of their culture that I think took some getting used to. And it's the thing that I went through culture shock with, so it sticks out to me. But on the flip side, once I got used to it, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed people not being in my face about every other thing. I enjoyed people being, sort of polite, if you will. It's polite to them. It's not necessarily polite to us, but I became acclimated to it and I enjoyed it. And then when I got back, I didn't like how direct Americans were, and I had acclimated to that type of culture. So that's one of the biggest ones to me, is that they're less direct, and eventually I learned to like it.